Great.
So now we are recording. This is session 3 of the Storytelling for Therapy and Coaching course. It is now October 2018. This is session 3 of 12. And I am Eric Miller, and we're going to go over an article for a few minutes, and then we're going to tell some life stories. And now let me see. I'm going to try this screen share. Let's see if it works. First, I'm going to open that. Okay, screen share.
Yeah, great.
Has it come on the screen?
Yes.
Are pictures on the screen also?
Yeah.
On the side? Okay, so we can, the four of us can all see each other, and we can also see the page. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Now I have enlarged the font, and I have highlighted in blue the sentences that I want to mention. So I'm going to scroll down to get to certain parts of it, and let's see how it goes. I'm using this term expressive arts therapy, which is the combination of all the different art therapies.
Okay.
And storytelling therapy or drama therapy in itself is already a combination of all the arts, because storytelling and drama can be a combination of all the arts. So it's really repetitive to say expressive arts therapy, because it really means almost the same thing as storytelling therapy or drama therapy. But we can also say storytelling therapy is one component of expressive arts therapy, or storytelling therapy is one of the expressive arts. I've been through this language issue because my wife runs a center dedicated to giving training in expressive arts therapy. So I've had to learn and get clear about it. Expressive arts therapy is specifically a mode in which all the other modes are used. Okay, so I'm introducing storytelling therapy in that context, and I'm comparing storytelling and stories to Cinderella, because Cinderella fixed her older stepsister's gowns, but for a long time, she couldn't go to the ball herself. And likewise, in the literature about the different art therapies, stories are often mentioned, but only recently has story or storytelling therapy emerged as a thing unto itself. Let me get to the point. I'm going to jump now to something that I feel is especially important. Does anyone have any comments or questions so far?
No. So is it possible for you to just share the slide or something? Because if I have it in my system and read it, that would be even more comfortable. And I just want to scroll and see a couple of things.
Well, I believe I've sent it, or sent the link. If you go to storytellingInstitute.org/215.
Okay.
There you'll find a link to this article.
Okay.
All of the readings are at /215.html. And it's there, I think, as a PDF.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's there as a PDF file. Last week we did that drawing of a story, right? Remember, we drew a story on a page?
Yes.
And that was a modified version of, I mentioned the 6-part storytelling method. I'm going to jump to 6PSM.
Eric, I did the 6PSM in art-based therapy also.
Oh, good. So you're familiar with it. So when I first heard about the 6PSM, I thought, okay, this is interesting. It focuses on obstacles and overcoming obstacles. And
what is the full form actually? 6PSM, huh?
6-part story making method, or 6-part story method. And what I realized is that it is based in part on the model developed by Joseph Campbell in his book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, because it's about a character who goes on a journey. Joseph Campbell's model is a character who goes on a journey and faces obstacles and has allies and sometimes has to struggle against some element that's in the way. So then I thought further about it, and I realized that there's really been a long history of scholars, anthropologists, literary scholars, who have been abstracting the story of characters, especially of folk tales, of legends, of epics, of myths. And here's a list of some of these famous works. Each one identified a different aspect of the story. And many of them talk about a hero. And I advise you when you're working with clients, not necessarily to talk about a hero, just talk about a character. Because a hero, the word has a lot of baggage to it. It implies someone who's doing something for society, not just him or herself. It may raise ideas of kind of aristocracy, you know, kings and queens. It may raise ideas of divine figures. And it elevates everything to a certain, you know, level, which you may not want to put that kind of pressure on a character. You see? When you say a hero is doing something, a hero has to do something big. And as I say, it's usually not just for him or herself. It's on behalf of society. But anyway, these scholars have written about the hero, the golden bough, and the model that he saw was that the old king had to be defeated and replaced by the new king, by the new prince. He saw it as a cyclical, as in nature, you know, the end of the old year and the beginning of the new year. That was his approach. And then Otto Rank, very much following Freud, he's looking at the story very much as a conflict between the son and the father. Then Vladimir Propp, he said, I don't know if I mentioned this pattern to you last week, he said, every story, especially fairy tales, but in stories in general, have 3 parts. At the beginning, everything's peaceful, everybody's together. Then there's a breakup, maybe because of a villain, but the world is shattered. The family is shattered, and everybody is separated, and the story cannot end, cannot come to peace until the family has been reformulated. It will not be exactly the same, but at least a family group will be reformulated. That was his idea of a story. Lord Raglan, I'm not sure exactly what his approach was. Joseph Campbell, again, it begins where things are quiet, but they're quiet in Joseph Campbell's vision because the authorities are keeping us down. The teachers, the parents, the police, the politicians, they're all repressing us just because they're in power and they want to stay in power and they don't want to give us a chance. So most people go along with it, right? Because most people are weak. But there are amongst us some great people who cannot stand it and we escape. We're not in a position to rebel at this point, but we can escape. We can jump into the ocean and swim, or we can go into the mountains, into the jungle, and take our chances with the tigers and the snakes. And miraculously, the tigers and the snakes don't bother us because they're all a part of Mother Nature, and we love Mother Nature, and Mother Nature loves us. And we may go on a mission to get the fountain of youth, for eternal youth, or some special sword. And once we have it, that sacred special object, which represents our connection to the deepest part of ourselves and to the universe and to the divine, once we have that special thing, we can go back to society and overthrow the tyrants and institute heaven on earth. And again, this is cyclical, because after some time, we ourselves might become repressive, and the next generation might have to come and overthrow us. So that's Joseph Campbell's great vision. These are all scholars who did not really do field work. They did library work, so they're analyzing on a very abstract level. But keep these models in mind. They're fun, they're interesting. And when you're creating stories, or even when you're telling your life stories, you might use some of these formulas. A little further down, I mentioned one very popular formula for life stories, which is here. As a child, I was free. I had a golden age of childhood. I could play, I was loved, but now I have many responsibilities. So, of course, in reality, even as a child, many of us have problems, but sometimes we tend to remember it in a golden way, in a way that we certainly didn't have certain responsibilities. When we grow up, if we choose to have a family, a husband or a wife, we have to, sometimes we have to make sacrifices, right? We have to work to support our family. So, so that is one pattern that is true for many of us, right? Childhood, free, now adulthood, responsibilities, and yearning to be free again, or at least to have some element of freedom, even though we have to be responsible. And the ladies' version of this is, I loved college and I began to work, but then I got married and I had to devote a lot of time to my husband and children. But now the children are growing up, so I have more time to pursue my intellectual, creative, and professional interests. I hear this from many women who take my storytelling workshops. And actually, many of them are studying storytelling so they can now use it professionally. You know, they can train teachers or they can work with children. So it's part of their returning to the public sphere, often with the knowledge that they've gained from raising their own children. Now they want to apply it to children in the general public. Okay, I think that's enough with this. Here are the 6 questions of the 6 PSM. Here, let me do a search on 6. Whoops. Here. You might recall that when I did this last week, I was not too strict about it. I said, okay, imagine a character, but you know, what does she look like? How does she feel? What is she holding? What environment is she in? I did not go straight for what is her mission. First, I wanted you to have a chance to just feel, let it slowly come up from your unconscious, who the character was and how she felt, and what she looked like, and how she fit into her environment. I don't believe it's helpful to put people on the spot at the very beginning and demand that they imagine and communicate, what is this character's mission? What does she want? You know, that might come at first, but it might not. And if it doesn't, the person will freeze up and worry that she's not doing it right. So I suggest don't force this thing of the character wanting something or going on a mission. But this method is especially about the mission, then who can help, what's the obstacle, what happens, how does the character overcome the obstacle, and then what happens at the end. Okay? So when you do this with yourself or with children or with a client, fashion it any way you want. You know, play with it, make it your own. This is just one possible configuration of it. And again, Mouli Lahad, the psychologist who formulated this exactly, he was trying to measure people's resiliency and how they could overcome obstacles. That's what he was really focused on. So if you're not caring so much about obstacles, don't insist that the character has to want something and have to overcome obstacles. If that happens along the way, fine. But you don't have to organize it around that if you don't want to. Any comments or questions before we leave this article behind?
Yeah, I have one thing.
Go ahead.
This 6-part story is like a formula which you're telling. So 6-part, you can put anything and bring
He
it.
recommends folding the paper,
Okay.
you know, up and down,
Okay.
and then 3 ways across.
Okay.
So you have 6 rectangles.
Okay.
And you have to do dot, 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 dot.
Okay.
Whereas different from me again, I said start anywhere and go in any direction.
Okay.
So I did a research project with children at risk.
Mm-hmm.
I did this 6 PSM in the beginning of the research and this 6 PSM again at the end of the research.
Mm-hmm.
So the perception of children, you know, how they were perceiving things had changed. Maybe next time in the session, I can, you know, show you.
Oh, please. Wonderful.
The pictures, you know, you'll get an idea.
And how did they warm up to this thing of a character having a mission or wanting something? Was that okay with them, or did some of them say, I can't figure it out?
So what I told these children was that, what does that person do? You know, you have to take it down to small things because children have to understand what we are saying.
Yes.
They might not understand a mission or something. So what I said that everyone does something for the living. So what is this person doing?
Okay.
So there were certain stories which were really sad when I started before the research. And after 3 months of art-based therapy, I again did 6 PSM. And you could see a positive shift in those stories also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe next time I can show those.
Please do. Please do. And show us the pictures if it's ethical. I don't know, if you have permission. And you know, you don't have to do this in terms of therapy. This is a general creativity exercise. If you're writing a novel, if you're writing a movie, if you just want to play, or if you just want to help some other people play, you can do versions of this. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. So now let's put this aside and take off our analytic hat and put on our storytelling hats and story listening hats. So I'm going to stop the share. There we go. Back to ourselves. And by the way, I hope you all know that you have a choice of how the screen is configured. On the upper right corner, it either says speaker view or gallery view. If it says gallery view, you're seeing 4 pictures at the top small and 1 picture on the bottom big. I guess that's a speaker view. So if you click that and you go to the gallery view, you'll see the 4 of us like on four quadrants, which personally I like better, but you can choose either one. It's being recorded with the 4 equal size boxes. Okay, so I think we talked about the life story before the recording was made, before the recording started, but I guess it's kind of clear. Does anybody have any questions or comments before Shankar tells his life story? My only suggestion, which is always going to be my suggestion, is let characters speak for themselves as much as possible. And that means, in this case, if you had any conversations with anybody, you know, many times a conversation is like, mother and father, I want to go to college to study computer animation. But father says, that's not a steady, secure job. Why don't you study to be an IAS officer? And then I said to my father, ... So a conversation like that, which is, you know, related to a big decision, a big turning point in your life, try to actually act out the conversation, both parts. And also, at other times when your character, when your memory of yourself is at a point of having to make a decision, you might say, okay, so at this point I said to myself, I don't know what to do. I could do this or I could do that. That's called speaking your thoughts out loud, right? In theater, that's called a soliloquy, where you're speaking to the audience as a character. It's a very warm thing to do, and it brings us back to where you were at that moment. You see, if you say, I'm not sure if I should do this. If I do this, it'll be good. If I do that, it'll be that. It brings the story into the present tense. So it's like in a comic book. If one character is speaking to another, there's a thought circle. I mean, there's a solid line around the words. But if a character is just thinking to himself, it's a kind of a cloud type of design. So give us a little bit of either, and try to focus on 2 or 3 specific moments, specific episodes that have been important, decisions, turning points in your life. Storytelling thrives on specific moments. What it does not thrive on is generalities, like I love my mother so much and she loved me and she was a great inspiration to me. You know, that's wonderful and it may be true, but it's too much of a summary. We want an example of how she helped you. Okay? So with all of that said, I'm going to mute myself. And Rina and Usha, yeah, you're already muted. So Shankar, take it away. I'm going to give you a signal after about 8 minutes. You may end before then if you do. If you do, that's fine. Anyway, go ahead. Please tell us the story of your life.
Yes, great. So actually, I'm just searching for my presentation about my script, which I did it in my TA. So I just thought I can.
Oh, excuse me for interrupting, but please do not read this.
No.
Please do not read it at all. Don't even read notes.
No, it's not a notes. It's just a pictures arranged so that each and every time, I take it to one level, you have a couple of pictures coming. So I don't have the habit of reading. I always, take it, process it in me and tell it in my own words.
So you want the pictures as a sort of memory helper for you?
Yeah, it's not like a memory. So I thought my script presentation would be even more effective when I put it.
I suggest don't do it.
Okay, no problem.
Because if you see those pictures, you'll be seeing them, but we won't be seeing them. So you'll be having a relationship with the pictures, and that will take your focus away from relating to us.
Great.
So I suggest try to look us in the eyes, which is tough, because if you look us in the eyes, the camera will get a shot of you looking downward. Okay. If you want to give the illusion of really looking us in the eye, just look in the camera. So either way, either look in the camera or look in our eyes, and just tell us what happened. Where were you born?
Yeah, I'll start from that. So I'm basically, I was born in Chennai itself. I was born on 28/11/1993. So I am the only child. So I was born from a conservative family. So my parents are like, they will not leave me just like that. They just always hold me. So they make sure they draw boundaries exactly so that, I don't move being a single child. initially, I did my UKG. I am not a person who would love to go to school. Okay, so I am a person who believe more on practical exposure from that time. So when I was doing my LKG, UKG, I'm not sure. I gave my first speech in my school in front of about 1,500 people. So it's about how we got our independence. So that was my first speech. So I'm a person who liked to go to stage, explore things. So from the young age, that was my script basically. So once I completed my UKG, as usual, once you come to first standard, the problem starts there, which I believe. So lots of bookish problems, all those things were there. So somehow I survived and I came till 10th standard. So 10th standard, I was the school representative. That is 10th standard representative. So we used to have different houses, right? Blue, pink, pearl, red. It's like that. So I was representing red. That's called as Ruby when I was doing my Chettinad. So I was representing red. So I am a person who would love to organize. Okay, so I used to go out. I actually used to organize things for the college. So that gave me an energy inside. I believe that that is my core competence, and that is the thing which I would basically love to do. So once I completed my 10th, as usual, I had a dilemma whether I need to do science group or commerce group. So it was a big discussion, and it was pretty challenging for me whether to take. And then I thought, like, why should I struggle doing science? Let me relax myself, enjoy learning. And then I took commerce. So I now I feel really happy taking commerce because I'm a person, whenever you take a subject or something, I would love to relate it with the outside world and study. So I used to take subjects like that. So till 10th, I didn't know why I'm using this A plus B the whole square and other formulas in maths and physics, all those things. But I had some relevance when I took commerce. I had economics, so I was able to see it live. So I am just an average student. I was just 60, 65, but once I took commerce, it was 80, 85 was my percentage. And 12th, I was the school president of Akshay Matriculation, which is in Velachery. So I represented the school. I took care of school. We organized lots of international conferences at that time. And as usual, we used to have sports days, all those things. So I took part in all those things. And I also did my NCC, National Cadet Corps. I was a certified person, and I used to go for camps and interact with lots of people, understand them, see what can be done. Maybe if it's possible, I'll tell what is my view for the problem or something like that. So after completing my 12th and college, that is the most important thing. I want to do BCom, but there were lots of colleges who offered me BBA, like Loyola, MCC, Vivekananda. So these colleges tend to be as a top college. So when I went inside and when I thought, okay, what am I going to do actually? So I thought, like, I want to do something called BCom. So BCom is basically generalized in commerce. So the purpose of taking BCom is that's what it is. So live. Subject is so live, and whatever you read, you can see, you can experiment, and you can also relate it and understand. That's the reason why I took my commerce. And as usual, again, I was doing pretty well, and we had a good rapport with the college. So I was believing the college life would be really excellent, but my college was a bit strict. I did my college in Chettinad College of Arts and Science near Adayar. There's a place, so I did it there, and it was nice. I became the department secretary of commerce. So again, we organized our school functions. We had our department work. We used to do that. And we used to have panels, right? 4 to 5 panels. So organizing, taking it up, and making it really interesting. What are the different activities we can give so that, you can make it effectively. And it was great and it was fun. We studied at the same time. We also had some fun. So it was a mixture. And after completing my BCom, next question is, what am I going to do? So then I joined a course called MILT, Madras Institute of Leadership Training. So it is basically more of public speaking. So I thought I am good in that. So I did my MILT, Madras Institute of Leadership Training. And basically I'm a person who would like to have adventures. So I also did something called paragliding. So I did my paragliding at Lonavala. I got my student pilot license and also my CPL. And it was nice. So both were dual. After completing that, and I was thinking whether to just take the flying lane and go ahead, or should I do something else? Paragliding in Chennai is difficult. So if I want to become an instructor or something, I need to go to Pune. And that wasn't that comfortable for me. So I thought let me do something. And I was just thinking, and I joined my TA, transaction analysis. And then I came out of Madras Institute of Leadership Training.
2 minutes to go.
Yeah, sure, I'll stop. And after that, TA actually made me understand more. And there were lots of childhood barriers which I had, which was actually rectified by using different transaction analysis models. And there were certain things which I was feeling uncomfortable. And I was also able to understand that what are the different parental contaminations I had inside. So how actually to, come out of that and move to an autonomous living is what understood. So once I joined TA, that actually changed my perspective of education and how education should be. And I also started implementing education in organization level. So then I went for training, and training is my favorite. So I basically believe more in activity-based training. So activity-based training is more lively. So I started taking that, and a week before I submitted my diploma for TA. So after 2.5 years, I wrote it and I got corrected by my teacher, and I have submitted my TA, and that's where I am. Yeah, I'm done with it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will all, including you, I hope, start slowly thinking about metaphors for the different episodes and situations, and then out of that might become a story that weaves together those metaphors. And
any example or something that would actually help me to think in that?
I can't think of anything yet, but the thing is that you've brought a lot of issues into play. You brought up a lot of issues, some of which are unique to you, some of which we all, many of us have experienced. Okay. And so these issues will resurface in your story that you're going to compose to inspire and guide yourself.
Okay.
And in some cases, they will appear as metaphors in your self-guiding story. In some cases, perhaps they'll just be plain and direct, exactly like it happened in your life.
Yes.
But the point is, in one's life story, one brings up issues and puts them into play, and then the thing is to play with it. So that will happen, and we will very sensitively help each other and make suggestions to each other, either in the group or privately. You know, do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like this metaphor for what happened? Do you like this story episode? And then, of course, it is the decision of the person to select or not select, you know, elements of his or her own self-guiding story.
Okay.
Great. Okay, Rena, are you ready?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Rena, you're on.
So it was a month of August, the year 1970. I was born in Kashmir, a beautiful place, you know, where the nature is always at play. Born in an affluent family, I had 5 brothers and sisters. There was a big bungalow, about 20, 22 rooms, a lot of cousins, uncles, aunties. So I've always lived in, you know, among many people, doing some chores, helping each other. And the best part was having fun with your cousins. We would steal apples, you know, from our neighbors. Me and my cousin would steal pickles from the store. Uh, what I really loved doing as a child was playing hockey. I was as lean as stick, but I always had a very strong will. You know, I used to cycle a lot, and I remember there was this cycling competition, a state level competition. I just didn't have any stamina, but sheer will, I actually, you know, reached the third position there. And my favorite hobby was sitting in a loo for hours and doing poetry. The best of ideas used to come there. So I was a very happy-go-lucky child, reserved, would always have one or two friends, not many people around. But and I've stuck to those friends even now. You know, for me, they're my lifetime friends. So for me, I realized my potential. I just want to share an incident. It happened in class 10th. So since I was from a business class family, you know, there was never too much of focus on academics. So we were never told that you have to study, or, you know, I just used to do it on my own. And my best friend, both her parents were professors. So I remember it was just about, I think, a month before our 10th exams, she came to meet me and she said, Reena, you know, if I don't get distinction, so distinction meant 75% those days. So she said, it's a prestige issue. I have to do it, you know, because my parents will feel very bad and what will the society say? So very innocently she said this and she went home. That night, I just couldn't sleep. I was thinking, my God, if she has prestige, even I have some prestige. I got to do something about it. And I think that was for me a turning point. Those 20 days, a class 10 student, I would barely sleep for 2 or 3 hours at night. And I focused. I said, okay, Reena, you're not getting any less than a 75%. And I calculated it. English, I have to get this percent, maths, this much, Hindi, this much, physics, this much. And I calculated to get 75%, I had to secure 563 marks. So day in and day out, I was living, eating, sleeping, dreaming only those 563 marks and working and striving towards it. And when the results came, you know how much I secured? 563. I think that was, for the first time I realized that I had potential. No one told me. You know, it was just very innocently she put it that it's a prestige thing, and I also made it, you know, my life those 20 days, and I just worked towards it. And I realized I had potential. For the first time I realized I had that drive in me. If I really set my mind on something, I could do. So for me, that was one incident which really helped me, you know, all along my life. Today also, when I think that, you know, I'm feeling a little down or low, I think about that incident. I get a high, I get that energy, and I know that I can do it. So I was a very creative person. Whenever I had time, I would draw, I would write. So after doing 12th, I went to my father, and I told him, I want to do fashion designing. But Kashmir did not have any institutes. And my father was like literally appalled what I was saying. He said, You know, typical Punjabi people, Indian society, they don't send their daughters anywhere. I said, you want to what? You want to study? That too not in Kashmir, without us, in a hostel, and that too fashion designing. So the whole idea was trash. He said, nothing doing, you're not doing that. But I am not a kind of person who would just let it be. I said, okay, I just wanted some exposure. I wanted to, get out of Kashmir. And I said, okay, if I cannot do that, at least send me for engineering. So he said, he sent my elder brother for engineering. There was no problem. And he again said, you're not going to work tomorrow. So he said, I just told him, but that's not your calling. Tomorrow I won't be staying with you forever. For 1 month, I did not speak to my father. And then he realized now this time she's not going to let go. And he said, okay, you can't do fashion designing. It's something he just couldn't understand the concept of fashion designing. I'm talking about 85, 86. At that point of time, he just couldn't understand what I was talking about. But at least for engineering, after a month, he agreed and I went and did my engineering. I was not interested in any technical thing, but since I had no other choice and I wanted to study, I didn't want to get married so early. So my only choice was to get out of Kashmir. So did my engineering. As luck would have it, this professional degree has helped me a lot. We were in Kashmir and because of the riots, my parents had to migrate from Kashmir in 90. And, I've always lived in a very affluent way and all those riches and everything was there. And suddenly from there, we fell on the ground. Overnight, my whole family had to leave all the business, land, home, everything and come to Delhi and we were homeless. I was still pursuing my engineering. I came back, I wanted to do something like an MBA and something, but I understood that the situation had changed. And I decided I have to help my father. So we rented 1-room apartment, all brothers, sisters sleeping on the floor. And I started looking for a job. Now I did engineering and instrumentation and there are not many jobs of instrumentation in Delhi. Because there are no big plants. You see, most of these plants are in west side, maybe Mumbai, Gujarat. And there was one thing which I was always very scared of. That was sales. Since I was a very reserved person, I could not speak, and I always thought sales is something which I'll never get into. And God said, no, if you're saying you cannot do this thing, this is what you are going to do. So after searching for 2 months, I couldn't find a job, and the financial state was really bad. I got into a sales job. And I told myself that day, okay, Reena, this is what God has given you. Let's make the most of what it is. From that day, for 2 decades, I did only sales. I started with selling industrial paints. I was going to tractor companies selling paints. I sold televisions. I sold HR services. I sold cars. I sold roadside assistance. I sold HR services. And last of all, I sold entertainment. And I just kept learning. I just, I grew up in
2 minutes to go.
Okay. So this was, I realized that, if you set your mind at anything, you can do it. Eric, I think I'm done.
So what are you doing now and what's your plan for the future?
Okay. So 2 years back, I realized that, achieving those targets and, being in sales, though I achieved, I was successful in my roles. That one thing which was always missing in my life was the creativity. So I said, okay, I've done enough. First for my husband, first for my father, then husband, then children. I said, now it's time I do something for my own self. So I gave up my corporate career. I did art-based therapy. I did a couple of courses, theater of the oppressed. I'm doing storytelling. And I started working with children. There are 2 things which I enjoy most. One is creativity, art, and second is children. Currently, I'm doing both. And maybe that's the reason I'm very happy these days. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. We have two wonderful stories to work with. So Usha, we'll begin with you next week. I'm sure it's okay, right? Before we stop recording, does anyone want to make any observations or say anything? Did Reena and Shankar, did your story come out any differently than the way you thought it would come out? Shankar, you've had 10 minutes to think about it. Is there anything you would add or change to your life story?
There's nothing, because I have a format in me. So whenever I tell a life story, I know how to start, how to end. So I have created a type of format because I have done it a couple of times. So the amount of opening you have inside, there is the same amount of healing happening inside too. So I believe on that. So I open as much as possible. I don't mind whether it is bad or something mistake or something. So since I have a structure, I didn't feel that I have left something. There's nothing like that.
One thing that I kind of forgot to say at the beginning was I might have encouraged you both to especially tell us about joys and frustrations. But it came out anyway. Both of you, there were joys and there were frustrations.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't even necessary for me to say that.
Yeah.
So in my case, I didn't have any script to it. I just was flowing with whatever was coming in my mind. It was basically reliving those memories.
Yes, but you definitely had joys and frustrations and joys.
Yeah, you ask me to sit and read a book, I will get frustrated completely. Yeah, I'm a person, I need to study for 15 minutes, enjoy for half an hour. So,
well, both of you actually, you are very advanced in the sense of you have found ways and you are finding ways to integrate your youthful freedom with your adult activity.
Yes.
As I mentioned, sometimes it's popular in life stories to say, I lost it. I lost my chance to be creative. But in order to be happy, many of us need to find a way to compromise, to bring back the play and the creativity, and also get paid for it if we need to get paid. And both of you have done it, or you're on your way to doing it. So you're both very successful in that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we stop recording and talk amongst ourselves for a couple of minutes. Okay, I'll stop recording now. Yes, okay.